Hello, guys, and good afternoon to you all. Yes, I know yesterday I said I would be I'll look for an hour or two for us to continue where we stopped yesterday. But first, let me ask, how is the week going so far? I'm very sure today is Monday and a lot of stressful things will be
Hello,
going
guys,
on.
and good afternoon to you all.
A lot of stressful things will be going on. I know people probably every Monday. I'm always kind of very tired because I know even I've not done anything the week. So I'm always trying to hold up what I did on Sunday, Saturday, and just let me remove all the stress in me. So Mondays are always very busy because if you can't get your Monday very right, probably the rest of the week might not be as good as it might be. So I would like to know, can you guys hear me? And I also like to know if you were able to join yesterday's meeting or watch yesterday's class because this is going to be like a continuation of what we did yesterday. So let me just do a little recap about yesterday. So in our yesterday's class, we were able to discuss operators, variables, um, naming of variables, variables in JavaScript, data types, an introduction and a whole lot, just basics and introductions of JavaScript. So in our today's class, I decided that let me just tell you the basic of the if else statement. And I noticed that my colleague also taught you about the if else statement, but majority of the if else statement he taught was basically he was using it on the what is it called? The browser terminal console, the browser console. And I want it to be that because they're a developer, and I know that it's very good that it started from the browser console because that's the first thing you need to get as a developer. So, but you will not be writing your code in the browser console. So it's always very good. You also have the knowledge of all this on how it works while using it on the browser. So good and fine. So today I'll be discussing about the if else statement first, and I have in my slide here. There may be times when you need to choose one or several parts while writing a program. In such cases, conditional statements must be used to allow your program to make correct decisions and perform correct actions. What this simply means is, for example, let me just break down the if and else statement in normal language. I like money. For example, if probably my salary is always 20 naira, then there's now a program that says every end of the month, pay Toby 20 naira if Toby is available, if Toby worked 31 days. Else, don't pay Toby. So the programs will check, the Toby work for 31 days. Yes, okay, we'll pay Toby, we'll send the 20 naira to Toby. If at the end of that 31 days, the program checks it and see that, oh, Toby did not work for the complete 31 days as it has been programmed, it will not perform the else statement. So continuation, it says conditional statements in JavaScript are used to perform different actions based on different condition. And the condition I said now is if Toby worked for 31 days, pay Toby. The if else statement will be explained in this section. So I would explain that majorly three types of the statement. Andrew, I know. Thank God you know. So JavaScript supports the following forms of if-else statements. We have the if statement, we have the if-else statement, and we have the if-else if statement and else if statement. So let me show you people logically how it is written. So let me get it up. So the if statement, this is how it is always written. Let me bring this down so that I don't. So the if statement, this is how it is written. You have your if, then always it must have this bracket before you put your code. So it must have this bracket. This bracket is taking the expression, which is like saying, okay, what am I checking for? Exactly. Okay. Tim sings. Timmy sings. So if I'm checking this, the expression is like saying, Okay, what am I checking for? What am I checking to be true? So this statement is only executed if that condition is true. If the expression I add here is true. Let me now show you an example of that. For example, I have variable age to be 20. I talked about variables yesterday, assigning a variable, naming a variable, and also assigning a variable. So I assign age to be 20. So if age is greater than 20, it tells me this is qualified for driving. So let's run it and see what it will give us. And here it says qualify for driving. Let me change this. If age is 2, for example, what would happen? Let's see. Is empty. So it just only checks, is age greater than 18? No. That means it's not going to print out the next thing. Then this now brought about the next condition, which is the if else statement. Because now if you have your code and you've written that, okay, if something is not true, it should print out false. So what about if that statement now becomes, what should it now bring out once the statement is false? So it's always written like this. The else statement does not need to have any bracket in front, just like the if. It does not have any bracket. It's just else. So it says if expression is true, it runs this. Else, if it is not true, it's saying this should not, if it's false, this should actually execute. So if you like say, if let me show you an example. So I have the if else, so I have this. No, come in. Oh, correct, sorry. Okay, so I have this. So this program is checking if age is greater than 18. Is age greater than 18? It will check it. No, age is not greater than 18. That means this condition will not be run. Then now, if age is not greater than 18, what will happen here to show that, okay, age is not greater than 18? Then it runs. Let's run it and see. It says, oh, I am not greater than 18. Truly 15 is not greater than 18. So it checks it and say, okay, age is not greater than 18. Then it runs this. So what about a case scenario where you want to put multiple options and you say, okay, check if age is greater than 18. If age is not greater than 18, check again if age is blah blah blah, is maybe like less than 18. You're able to check this. Do you have to add the text? Yes, it's always very good for you to add this type, because it's not just only script that runs, what is it called, that uses, not only JavaScript that uses this script. So try to always add it. So it always tells you that what type of this are you running. So it's always very, very important and always very, very good to add it. So let me, as I've run this, you see. So like, the third case scenario that, as I mentioned here, is if else. That is the if else if. So this one is like saying, if social condition is not true, I can check for another condition. So for example, if you are like saying you have Benz, you have your car as Benz. They are now at home. You're not like, okay, go and check, go and bring out something for me in my social car. Then the computer can now check it. Okay, look at car A. Is car A Benz? It says no. Car A is Toyota. It checks the next one. Is car A for Benz? It says no. Car B is what is it called? Ford. So let me run this. So let me explain this one for you. So what is, as I taught you people yesterday, assignment operator. And I told you that assignment operator, you use it majorly in this if else this thing. This is an assignment operator. So it is, so it checks. It names your variable. Oh, this is actually supposed to be car. It checks. Is car Benz? You have named the variable as car to be Benz. So it now checks. If car equals Toyota, is car Toyota? If car is Toyota, it will print out Toyota car. Then it checks again. If car is equal to Benz, it prints out car is equal to Benz. It checks again. Is if car is equal to Ford, it prints out car is equal to Ford. Else, it just prints out it does not own the car. So let's run this and see what it will give us. Where to start running. to print out the car Benz, that is the car is equals to Benz, which simply means it checks for this, then it saw that no, this is not what we want. Then it went to run this other code and it said that okay, yes, the car is equals to Benz, just as you've described here, as you've given that car is this. So what about if I change this and I say car is equals to BMW? I don't think I still know the full meaning of this BMW. When I was small, I used to call BMW as my wife. I don't know if that's the real meaning. Somebody should know the meaning, should just tell me, please. Okay, so as you can see, so as I said, variable car is equals to BMW, but now it checks everything here. It runs this condition. If car is Toyota, no, it's not Toyota. It goes to the next line of code. If car is Benz, it say no, car is not still Benz. It runs the next one. Is car Ford? No, car is not still Ford. Then now we now check, okay, since car is not Ford, that means the default party to return back to is now is unknown car, which is what we got here. So you could see how sweet if else statement is. What matters most about the if else statement is one, the expression. You put your expression here, then you put the code that you want it to run. The expression you want and the code you want it to run. The expression and also if else. Oh, okay. Sammy, I think we are on the same track. It's been my wife I used to put on my head then when I was very small. Okay, thank you very much. Is Bavarian Motor Works. Thank you, Mr. or Mrs. Aino Adewale. I've actually put that on my head now. Write it down. I really appreciate that. So we have the continuation. So with this, you've already known that if it checks if expression one is true, if no, it goes to expression two. Is expression two true? No. It goes to expression two. Is expression three true? No. Then that's okay. Since those ones are not true, then the final decision to go back to is else. Else is always the final statement. And if you notice, else does not have this if. It's final. Once there is an if with the s, that means it's expecting an expression. If I should do this, it is wrong. Let me, as you can see, it's even throwing me errors already. Why? It's telling me it's expecting this bracket. So once that if this thing is there, that means you must put this bracket for expression. The key things you should put, don't forget, is whenever you are forgetting everything here, don't forget this is your bracket for expression. If you are calling your if it's just else, you don't need the bracket for expression. So I think with this, anybody who is a beginner should understand the basic knowledge of if else statement. If you understood the basic of if else statement, let me know in the comment section below. If you feel you're still confused about this if else statement, I'm willing and ready to help you to go over your confusion or something you don't understand. Just make the comment in the comment section below. Let me know. Please, using write dot method will it know where exactly to append the text on the body. Well, depend. Document dot write. It's just going to pick if I should put this document dot write, this one, and I keep putting it here. Then I change this one. It's only taking like normal. You know how you have your p tag. How you have your p tag. It's just taking like normal p tag. So it's going down like that. So as you can see, the last one I will put here is the GGG. So because there's no B out there. There's no BR. So it's just taking like a normal p tag or whatever expression you put. So this document dot write is only going to be affected on where you are calling it, where you are putting it, exactly where you are putting it. So it's taking that line. So if you put it anywhere, it's going to show at that place. So good and fine. I'm still waiting. You people on the call, I would like to know in the comment section, comment below. Do you now understand the if else statement? Do you have the good understanding of this if else statement now, or do you think you are still confused, or did I make you more confused about the if else statement? Your comment will make me further on going to the next one, which is the um while loop. Okay, the switch rather. So I would like to know, Drop a comment in the comment section below. Let me know your understanding so far. If it was helpful, if you fully understood, or to some extent, this is a good foundation for you about the if else statement. Okay, I come back and see you said you understood it. That's great. I would love just maybe one or two persons again to say it, to like make that comment. I'll be waiting for the comments. If I don't get the comment, it means we don't understand it and I would not want to proceed. Okay, Okoro, then I have one more person that should just make the comments and I think I will move on. I'm still here, I'm still waiting for that. Does it mean just only two persons that if okay, good, very good. Okay, I think you guys understood that part, that part. So great. My problem now is JavaScript is knowing my problem now in JavaScript is knowing when to use conditional loop, function, variables, and all that, etc. Okay, Solomon, you would actually know when to use conditional loop. For example, if you have an array and you are trying to filter the array, for you to filter the array on JavaScript, it's always very good for you to use those conditional statements because now it will now check the array. Probably I know we've not spoken to array part. I would also explain array in the next class. I'll try to explain that because you also need an array and objects. So if you have a list of people in the class and you need to like filter, okay, so people are at the age of 15, you are doing a filter on the project. They are filtering a list of items. Let me use items. List of items. Then you need to check if social condition is met. If, for example, the items is greater than 1,000 naira, the if else statement is always very good to use. So what's the full meaning and where do we execute it? Oh, so what's the full meaning? What's the full meaning of what, please? That's the manual. So that is the if else statement. You can actually add those if else statements in your it's for JavaScript actually. It's for JavaScript. And if you notice in my JavaScript code, I use a script. I use a script to actually demystify that I'm writing a JavaScript code. And this is the right way to write it in JavaScript. So you would know when to use the if else statement. Probably now that you're still doing HTML, CSS, you may not do it. You can also use the if else statement to change the colors of a listing. You can use it to do styles. So you can put it that okay, if your what is it called? If the color is if the class name is so, if the class name is Dave or main, do this, you could do that. So that's what it just does. Even your CSS self, there's an if statement behind it that checks that okay, you are trying to style a class and you're saying you're giving the class a color, what is it called, a property. So it checks this your code and it says okay, is there a class named something? So if class is so the name you give to it, then do this. Okay, and if please, does JavaScript use endif? No, no. Elif, you mean elif? Elif that is in what is it called? Python. No, JavaScript does not use elif. JavaScript use the else if. Else if. Just the way I showed you in this main part. Else if. Else if. Else if. That means else if, not end if. Okay, good and fine. I think we can now proceed with the remaining part of Switch. This class is an hour class. I just want us to be able to catch up with a lot of things. If we were unable to finish this, I would also look for a way to ask for time tomorrow again so that we can continue. So, JavaScript switch case. To perform a multi-way branch, use multiple if else statements as shown in the previous slide. This is not always the best solution. That if else statement that I should that's not always the best solution. Sometimes when you have a lot of what is it called code and you would want to be writing if else, and it would be like a lot. So it should be a lot. So I also said that you can use a switch statement to handle this situation more effectively than repeating if else, because when you have a lot of if else statements, you look at this thing is just plenty. So there's a better way to do this, and it's always very, very easy. So that brought us about the switch and the case. So the switch is always like this. The switch takes up the expression. You see how you have that if what is it called? So is greater than 14. So the case will now be like, it will not check, is it greater than 18 than 14? Do this. It checks the second condition. Is it greater than this? Do this. But anytime it finds out that it's greater than, if it's correct, what it just does is it breaks. So once it has met the condition, it just breaks. So it checks it to the last one. Then when it sees that, okay, all these conditions are not met, all these cases are not met, it does this default. So just replace it as, you have your condition expression variable or something, then it checks if so condition is this, it moves to the next one. Else if it does this, else if it does this, then the last one is else. You see how this is actually just very short. Switch is actually always, some people love switch because one, they feel that it's very easy, and sometimes is let me say it's very easy. It's easy and it will not stress you the way if else sometimes might probably stress you. So recommendation, switch and this switch and case is always very, very good to use sometimes. So let me give you an example. So this is a perfect example about grades. So it says, I've already said from here, grade A equals to A. So it picks up the grade. That's, it checks the grade expression, which is the grade, which is what I'm looking for. Remember, in the if else statement, you have to write it like this, and you have to call one by one. So now this one just checks. Yes, I'll talk about the continue guide. I'll talk about the continue, but I'm talking about, instead of you changing that break, I will tell you the difference between the break and the continue. I'll tell you when you're expected to use the break and when you're expected to use the continue. I will explain that. Just become a bit. Thank you. Okay, so you have the switch as the grade. So instead of you having your grade is equals to A, you don't have to do that. So the case will undo that for you. So the case automatically is trying to say grade equals A. If yes, do this. It checks again. Grade equals B. If that, do this. It breaks. Okay, that's not correct. It checks again. Is grade equals C. It checks till the end. Then it says the default is it does not know the grade, because probably you've written something that is not there. So this is the best. Is also best when you are trying to do, like, you don't have to do multiple if else, just do your case and put whatever you want to do. As you can see, it's shorter. I only called my grade. I don't have to start doing those bracket expression and calling it one by one. This has handled everything for me. So let me run it and see. So yeah, it checks it for me. Switching, entering switch block, that's just the beginning of what it says here. This one is just an alert, it's not really important. So it checks, is grade equals to A? Yes, it checks it, good job. Then it stops and it just goes to the last part of this document. That means all these ones are not, it not run all these ones. It has already see the answer, so it breaks after. Then let me change this to, let's say, D. So it checks, is everything equals to D? It checks it from here. What grade is D? So it uses this case to undo that. Then it sees that, okay, yes, the option is D. That means if this also is D, if grade equals to D, it runs this. So it looks at all these ones, skips them because it does not meet the condition. Then it looks at it and said, okay, yes, this has met the condition. So you could see if else statement and case, they have that same thing, but you could use the if else statement to make your code look cleaner and simpler. So for you to make your code look cleaner and simpler, you could just use this, and you can see it's very, very easy that way. What you just need to know in this is just having your switch, which is going to house all the cases. The switch is going to house all the cases. So instead of you having the if one by one, it will just route everything. Then the case will be the conditions. We check for the condition two, we check for the condition three, we check for the next condition. But there's one thing I'll tell you should not do. Don't do this whenever if you are using this break statement. If you should do this, removing all these breaks, you will see the effects. If I remove all these breaks, the break automatically is trying to tell you that if it's not there, then skip. Is the break is automatically like skip. But if you remove this break and you run your server, let's see what will happen. It will print out everything because it does not see anywhere to say if social condition is not true, it skips it. So it could not skip, you just have to print it out because nothing could stop it from skipping. So you could see. So it just runs everything after it sees that okay, case is equals to D. It checks that once it checks for A is equals to this, it skips. It checks that this, it skips. It checks this, it skips. So when it saw the answer as this D, it saw that case grade is equals to D. What it does, instead of for it to just break and stop, it just runs all these ones as normal code. It does not even check again. It has done the check and it has seen. That's why you see that you write not so good, failed, and unknown grader. Unknown grade. See, as you could see, the three of them. So after I checked that this was true, all these other ones was just as if you just wrote them as normal HTML, and it does not even really care about to check if you wrote a condition for it. So it simply means this your break is important. The break tells you that for skip it if it is not true. Skip it if it is not true. So going forward, I would have loved to just show the next, what is it called, conditional statement. Okay, I just don't let me just jump anywhere too because I want to talk about the loop control. I will not jump yet, so I'll still go back to this switch, and I think I've been able to explain what the switch does for you. That's just how switch works. That's how switch works. So you have the while loop. The while loop is actually as easy as possible, but a little mistake in the while loop can break your code. It can break your browser. It can pause your browser and make your browser useless. So I would advise you, don't always, when you're using the while loop, try to be extremely careful. So in my slide there, I have it that you may come across a situation where you need to perform an action repeatedly while writing a code. In such cases, loop statements will be required to reduce the numbers of lines. So if you have a code that you want to run continuously, you want to see, okay, now you have a, instead of you going to a classroom and you want to count everybody in the class, you could run a while loop and say program. Yeah, I sent the slide to the chat. I've sent to, what's it called, to Slack. I sent this slide to Slack yesterday. For those that needed this slide, is on Slack. So the while loop, let me say you are in a class of 50. Instead of you to start doing, let me start counting them one by one. One, two, three. See how that could actually be stressful. What about if you have a class of 1 million and you need to count them? This while loop makes it very easy for you to count them. Instead of it for you start writing if else statement, writing if class is less than 100, do this. And it's now, you understand, the if only runs once. The if runs the statement once. Let me show you an example. A good example is if I, okay, let me say, okay, you could see when I did the if statement on this, my if age is less than 19, it only ran it once and checked is age less than 19. It printed it out. This part is age greater than 18. It checks it just once and it prints out. But the while loop, we check it and we'll print it till it says that yes, the condition has been fully met. So it tells you all the necessary information. It probably wants to count it for you. It counts it to the end. So that's what while loop does. While loop just counts something repeatedly till it sees that now nothing will run again. It ensures that it checks that nothing is going to run again. So the while loop is the most fundamental loop in JavaScript. A while loop purpose is to execute a statement or code block repeatedly as long as an expression is true. The loop ends when the expression becomes false. That's in language, in an English language, the way I just said it now. It continue running in as much as the condition is true till it sees that the condition is down false, it now stops running. So let's check out how it's always on the code. The while loop is very easy, and this is how it just comes. You see how you have your if, instead of if is while. So while expression, it now checks if expression is true, it continue running till expression becomes false. So that's what it does. So on our code, as you can remember, I'm still writing my normal script. So this is what it does. So it checks if I put that the count is 0, then I just declare start counting. Like I'm just declaring this one just for it to write. Then now while loop checks if count is less than 100, it continues running. It continues running. It tells correct count and it tells me the count. Then and I say this one is increment. I told about increment yesterday. So plus plus, instead of me doing count plus 1, I'm just doing count plus plus. So that's what it's doing. So it's going to check for me that as long as count is not equals, is less than 100, it will keep counting till it gets to 100. So if I should do this and I run this, as you could see, it says now it starts counting. Count is 0. Then it counts again. It counts 1, it counts it till it justifies that count is 99 is less than this, and then 100 is less than, then count stopped. So this is an efficient way. If you have a million arrays that you need to like check maybe the numbers, or you need something to continue loading in as much as this is met. For example, in pagination, a pagination is almost like a while loop. So pagination checks that okay, you have a pagination, and that's I'm telling you where you can actually use while loop that you may not even see it, but the logic that is being used there is while. So in pagination, it says that don't print out 5 things on a table. So it checks it even though you have like 100. So it loops and sees okay, in as much as this is not up to 100 yet, I print. Once it's up to 100, it stops, then it goes to the next page. So that's the logic about pagination. But one thing you should always do about while, in as much as you have the while loop ensures that it takes you must put a condition that will stop the while loop. If I have this and I remove this, what is it called? This plus plus, this one to check. So now this one will only check count less than 100. So it always print 0 0 0 because I don't have anything to increase it. So what I'm only trying to say is that when you are running your while loop, you must have something that will break it, that would make sure that the option becomes false. If there's no, what is it called, there's no code entity that shows that the option is now false, the expression is false, the while loop continues running. So if you have to count people and you say that continue counting, if there is no option to say it's stopping, for example, see, it's saying this is also equal to 100, but now because I made it as count, there's nothing to increase it to make sure that it gets to 100 parts. If I should run this, I just pray my this thing does not break, but I'm very sure it will break. Let me save it. I'm scared because this may actually just break. As you can see, it's even still loading. It's still loading. It's loading. And I think this is actually risky. See, it tells me unresponsive. Let me just close it. It can't run it to the end. Because if you should run it to the end, my call might actually stop. I would advise you just try it on your own. You will see it. You could see my page. It told my page became more responsive because it's trying to run the while and it's still running it. It's still running in the background. But for you to print it out, if you print it out, my Chrome will just crash. I would have to restart my Chrome, and I don't want to do that because I would have to end this call, and I don't want to do that. So I'll tell you. You could see how that is stopped. So you must always put a breaker. The breaker is very important. The breaker would ensure that once the condition is not now true, it stops. So that's infinite loop. Thank you very much, chromosome or creep cream zone. Sorry about that. Apologies if I pronounced that very wrongly. I never meant to call it chromosome. I'm very sorry. That was the first thing that came to my head. Cream zone. Sorry, crimson. Sorry about that. Sincere apologies. Okay. So you have that. So infinite just keeps on running and keeps on running and keeps on running. So a breaker must be attached. The breaker makes sure that okay, yes, this is working accurately. So good and fine. We've been able to talk about the while loop, but we still have other greater loops that is good. The third kind of loop. Please, must it be count that will be used? Can letters be instituted for the count? Like I. Okay, you want for yes, you can use I. You can use I. You can use I. Please don't do that. Oh, don't you? Please don't do that. Please don't do that. I beg you. Please, please. Thank you. So you can use I. You can use anything. You can use any letter, but ensure the letter you are using is this variable. So if I should do this and I change everything to, let's say, OB or something, and I save it, it will still run. It will run. It will run as I want it to run. It will run. You can see it will run to that 99. So you can use anything at that side. You can use anything at that side. I'm very sorry about that script zone, please. Apologies, sincere apologies. Never my intention to do that actually. Okay, so we have that. So we have that on while loop. So the next loop statement we'll be talking about is the do while loop. I'm very sure a lot of you might have not heard about this do while loop. Yes, the do while loop is similar to the while loop, with the exception that the condition checks occur at the end of the loop. This means that even if condition is false, the loop will always be executed at least once. It will always check it. You should always check it. So the do while loop is another type of loop. It's similar to loop, but it's different a bit. This one always checks if condition is false. I'm very sure a lot of people might have not heard about the do while loop. I just wanted to put it in for people to understand. So for the do while loop, it's always like this. Do, very easy. So it does this and it checks. This is where the expression that is supposed to be executed. Instead of you having this is your bracket that you do here. So you not do that. So you just call the while expression, and this would actually just check. So once the expression is correct, it now does what is in the do. So it's always like this. For example, count equals to 0. So it's like starting from the back. So it checks. It will not run this side, it will just keep this side. First of all, come and run this side and check. It counts less than 5. It says yes, it counts less than 5. Then it now comes here to come and check it, to come and run it. So it will never be empty, it will never be false or something. So you can see it now prints it 0 to 4. Remember, it's not always counting the last one. So it's same thing as that while, just that it's just like another method and another way, but it's a sweeter way. Do while loop. Exactly, yeah, you don't really use the do while loop or something. You don't really use the do while loop. The do while loop does not really come up. But I'm only telling you, like I said, my major focus is you people should know the basics, and I want you guys to just have almost every knowledge as good as possible. Everything you need to know about JavaScript, so that whenever you hear somebody saying do while loop, you don't be like, oh, Zuri never made mention of do while loop. So every terminology you need to hear of, I would ensure that I would break it down and explain them to you. So good and fine. So that's just the do while loop. The do while loop does not really have something very much in it. So the next one we'll be discussing is the for loop. Yes, the for loop is the smallest type of looping. It consists of 3 crucial components. Those components, that component, those for loop is useless, it's not work. So we have the loop initialization, in which set our counter to a start value before the loop begins. The initialization statement is executed. So check that initialization statement first before you execute anything. There are always 3 entities that are always there. Always 3. And always separated with commas. So you see the next one, the test statement determines whether or not the given condition is true. So this one is now running the if else. So the statement is now like the if else statement. It's not checking if condition is met. The code contains the loop to be executed. Otherwise, the code will exit the loop. So once condition is not met, it does not even bother to do what is in the third one. So the iteration statement which allows you to increase or decrease the counter. So for example, you know how we did that while loop that we're increasing it. So instead of you doing that way, there's another safest. Now I told you that that while loop can crash. So the safest way of doing that while loop is to do this. Okay, I'll try my best to share the JavaScript code. It's not actually too much, but it's actually a project for it's for Zuri. So I would always ask for the permission to do that first before I do that. So it's a Zuri product and not something that I have power over. So I would ensure I seek for permissions before I can send the code out to GitHub. But if I'm sending it out to be under Git Zuri repo, good and fine. So the last one is the iteration statement, which allows you to increase or decrease the counter. So how do we even use this? How do we use this? Having that we've known that okay, these are the three things to do. So let me show you in our code. So first is always like this. It takes the initialization statement, ends with this, then it checks the test condition. If this test condition is not met, it just stops. It does not do execute again. Now I see statement to be executed if test condition is true. Then this iteration statement is just like to say continue checking if it's an item of an array. Continue checking till you get to the end of the array. And this is always very, very simple. And most times you always see it as plus plus one. So in your this thing, this is how it should look like. You have it. You have your count. Just name an empty variable and call it count. So now this one is now the initialization. You are saying instead of you saying count equals to zero from here. So you can say check. You have the count that you name the variable. It now checks count equals zero. It checks it. Yes, count is zero. Now we now look at the this statement. Is count less than zero? Is count less than 10? Is zero less than 10? It says yes, zero is less than 10. Then now you want to continue checking. This will now always be adding in as much as count is less than 10. Do this. So it's not adding it. It's plusing one, plusing two, plusing one. That's to count, making it get to two, making it get to three, making it get to four, till it gets to see that okay, yes, now is less than 10. Oh no, Samuel, I don't think nobody's laughing at you about that, Samuel. Actually, the laugh is because I called crimson chromosome. So you could see, oh, Odwanyo said chromosome already. So I don't think crypto, please don't just reply. So that's the cause of the laughter. So it's not like maybe somebody laughed because you asked that question. Your question is very valid, and I appreciate people asking questions. So, in as much as I'm in the class, ask as much as possible questions that you need. Any confusion that you have, keep asking. Don't be shy of asking. Nobody's going to make jest of you. Nobody's always going to make jest of you. Just know that anybody that's going to make jest of you, I promise you, the person will be kicked out of the what is it called? The not the program actually kicked out of probably. But I'm very sure that you will get the required punishment for you. Nobody's to make jest of anybody. So, Samuel, it was not that they were not laughing at you for anything. Just because I called him chromosome, which was his name was actually Crimson. Okay, thank you for that. So you have this now. Yeah, I think that has been cleared now. So, like I said, the count is just continuous. It happens continuously. So it counts it till it gets to less than 10. So let's see what happens when we print this out. You could remember the while loop. The while is just it just checks if count is less than 10 and it does this. So it's the breakdown of this while loop that brought about this. So it says, so it checks starting count, it checks till it gets to 10. You could remember while loop. You see how while loop does its own. If you could remember, you saw how while loop did its own. So also is like this for loop. So you could use this for loop in place of the while loop. But in this case, if I should say this to be less than 100, It will keep counting till it gets less than 100. It keeps counting till it gets less than 100, just the way you have the while loop. But why I said the for loop is always very, very this thing is that it checks for this. If this was in what is it called while loop, it's not run. But this one checks for instead of even though without the increment, it checks for this. So it just stops. It counts is not less than zero. But let me remove this third this thing and let's see what would happen. This increment does not count it. It will keep checking. See, it does not even run because it does not know what to run. Okay, let me sorry. I did not put it to be less than. Same thing. Be expecting the same thing. Be expecting the same thing that happened to while because it's not seeing that increment. So this is just like the short way of doing that while loop. As you can see, it's not loading, it's just trying to load. And like I said, at the end it told me that it cannot load, that is taking time to load. What is it called? It should have loaded. So let me just stop it because it's still trying to count it. So like I said, it's always very important you add this your count also for the for loop. While for the while loop, you also add something like that. Okay, I would try to obviously Kechuku, I'll try to like get that. I'll try to ask for that permissions to do that. So good and fine. You've been able to get this, and this is just like the knowledge about for loop. What is very important about for loop is just this statement. With this statement, you are good to go. What is just going to be here is what you expect it to do. So you write your document, write your anything that you want it to do to be here. But just get the logic of initialization, which is like stating if maybe something is zero or if so person is A or something. It loops through an item. All this will get best to your understanding when we start using an array, when we start using objects. So if I'm when I'm trying to take object class, I would ensure that I use all this if, else, whatever, so that you'll be able to use it in real life scenario. Because all this is, I know that for you now, it might look like, oh, you're just saying it, but it's not as if you understood it. So in real life scenario, I'll try to use it in a real life scenario. I would have made this class 2 hours if I had the ability, but I think I just didn't. Then there's another one which is the for in loop. This one is actually not, it's something that is not, you don't really need it now because it's always for objects. Like you're trying to check in for properties like if Toby is in name, print out this. But I know that you guys have not known about objects yet, objects in JavaScript or arrays. So it might probably seem difficult. So I will not, I will not be going deep into this. But I'm only telling you so that when we get there and I start using it, you will not have to like be like, okay, what's the meaning of the for? This was not the way they taught us about the for loop. This is just saying you are trying to get into an object, you're trying to get into a property in an object or an array. You are trying to pick out something in an array, so you check it. If Toby is in name, then do this. So it takes that for Toby in name, do this. So the for in loop is written in this way. So it checks the variable name you are looking for. Is it in object? If yes, it executes this. So very easy. Always remember, almost all your listeners I've seen always have this bracket. So always look at it. Yes, they always have similar functions. That bracket. They perform different functions. Sorry, Esther. They perform different functions. So you could use a if else statement if you don't have to repeat something. Probably just don't check it once. But if you need to make repetitions of something, then use your while loop. Then if you need to check for something, or you need to repeat something, unless or if a condition is met, you need to iterate something, then use your for loop. So those are the difference. The if you need to make something just once, check for something if it's just once, then that's all. The while, if you need to check something continuous, if that condition is met, just keep on doing this program unless there's something that will stop it. But the for loop will only check, okay, if something is met, then it keeps on iterating. It goes back again, check it again. Is it still met? It goes back again, check it, is this still met? It go back again, check it till it gets to the point that I said that okay, yes, the condition has been totally fulfilled. Then that's all. Then this for in loop is just only going to check that if you want to pick out something, if also something exists in something, do this. If it exists in array or an object, basically what object just simply means is just like a list of data. I would have loved to show you what an object. An object is always written like this, something like this. Name, a day, can be like this. Segun. Oh, so time is actually running. So almost something like this. This is how an object is always listed. And also when it is in a database, it's always like this too. So exactly. Thank you, Crib Zone. So good and fine. Good and fine. So the for in loop is always like this. So for it to execute the for in loop, but like I said, it's always checking for an object because I cannot bring out any objects here. So I'm going to use property. There's a property called navigator in browsers, and it prints out a lot of things. So as you can see, you could see that I'm naming navigator, but it's extending to something. It's taking a property already. So I'm checking for a property. That means for the properties in navigator, print out those properties. That's what this one is always saying. So navigator, this thing, you just see it listed. You are not seeing anything here, but it's something that's always in the browser. So those are the things that are always in the browser, and you see them below, like down. So as you could see, when you do this, when you inspect, you will see a lot of them. You see them. I'm trying to get out where they are even as of. I'm trying to get where they are. I think I've forgotten. But that's just it. So that's what it does. As you could see, it's just short. It checks if this is true, if this is in this. So let me remove this. Let me just remove the y. You see that it will not run. See, undefined. It's not seeing it. The undefined I told you about. So it checks it and said that okay, nothing is there. It prints that undefined, that nothing is there. It's not seeing anything. The property that I said does not exist in navigator. So it's undefined. So that's all on for loop. Then let me just talk about the last one before I can actually just move. Oh, we still have a lot though. I think I would have to beg for another 1 hour tomorrow. So the loop control, we have loop control, we have functions. Let me just finish up the loop controls, then we'll talk about functions tomorrow. Functions and probably events and how to handle events. Then we'll also move on to arrays and all that. So let me just talk about this. So we have this JavaScript loop control. Somebody once asked about continue. So it's under this loop control. So JavaScript gives you a complete control over loops and switch statements. This may be times when you need to exit a loop without reaching its bottom. So it does not even check to the end. You may also want to skip a section of your code and begin the next iteration of the loop. JavaScript provides a break and continue statement to undo all these scenarios. The statements are used to exit any loop immediately or begin the next iteration of the loop. So let me use the control statement and show you. So the control statement is very, very easy. And what control statement just does is like this. So it runs the code very equals to this, then it enters. So while this is true, so if it's maybe you use your switch and something, switch and this thing, so I'm only using the elf and while something to use that continue, like I said. So you could use it in switch, you could use it in your if, you could use it in your while. So it checks while x is less than 10. So it runs it x plus 1, this is your iteration, that counts plus plus. So it can be x plus plus, s plus plus. So it checks s. You see, is it when it comes there, it checks first. Now you add plus 1, it becomes 1. Is 1 less than 10? It still continues. It writes x is equal to 1. It checks again. Is 1 up to 2? Plus again. No, 1 is x. So it adds up again, making 2. Is 2 less than 10? Till it gets to 10. But now, before it gets to 10, there's a part that says if x is equals to 5. That means if x is equals to 5, that means continue. That means it will not stop writing, it will stop running the code. It check that it has met up its own requirement and says, okay, now I'm up to what they say I should up to. I should skip up the remaining ones. So, for example, if you are looking for somebody in the list, you are like, there's a list of people in a this thing, in a list, and you want to remove somebody from a from from a list of items. You have like, you have Toby, and then like 5 people in the list. Then you say you want to remove Toby from that list of items. We are printing it out. Maybe I'm omitting somebody's name. And instead of it, you go and start deleting one by one, one by one. You could run this statement in it and say, okay, just run the code. The list of, if so person is this name, just continue, skip it and continue. The person never be printed out. So, for example, they expelled somebody in a school. They now want to remove the person from the database. But now you don't want to go and start removing the person one by one. You can just run a check to say if the name of why you have run all this, then if the name now equals to the person's name, skip it. So you could see this statement ran everything. So let me start from 0. Ran everything from 1, 2, 3, 4. Then when it gets to 5, it removes the 5. That means it skips it, it continues 6, 7, 8, 9 till 10. So this continue is just like a break. It helps you to skip whatever you don't need. So it skips it. Instead of using that dot pop, you don't delete the person. You don't sub delete because it's your database already. Because when you try to use all those pop, you are trying to delete it. So you don't want to delete it. You just want to skip it. So the best way to skip it is using this continue in your code. So I think with this, I have just a minute. With this, I could say I've been able to cover the looping system, the if, else, while, and all that. In our tomorrow's class, if I get a chance to get a class tomorrow, we'll be discussing about functions, and I would also try to make respective slides about the other parts of functions. So I think that's basically all for today, and there's another class that's going to be going on now. So thank you very much for joining this class, and also have a very wonderful day ahead. All of you should enjoy yourself, and bye. Also, lastly, don't also forget to like the videos, and if you've not subscribed on Zuri YouTube, ensure you subscribe.